That right there behind me is SpaceX's Starbase, and on the pad launching in just a few hours is SpaceX's Starship Test Flight 7. This is going to be the largest rocket ever launched from Earth, and it'll be going up in just a few hours. But it's not just a big day for rocketry, this is also the beginning of a new era for SpaceX's Starlink constellation, their mobile internet constellation, and the beginning of a whole new era of Starlink. So we've got the details of what's coming with the Starlink V3 satellites that this Starship will make possible. So stay tuned for the details. Hi, I'm Chris with the Mobile Internet Resource Center here, geeking out over being at a launch with a front row seat for the launch of Starship Flight 7, which is just about to go off here on a beautiful day in South Texas. And we are really excited to see this launch, but we are also really excited about what this launch will be testing. So this is a test flight, and one of the main goals of this test flight is to test the new Pez Dispenser satellite dispensing system. We're getting our first look at the new Starship V2 design that has the new Pez Dispenser satellite launching mechanism. And they're about to, in just a few days, going to launch the first test Starlink V3, the new Starlink satellites designed to launch from the Starship. They're going to do some mass simulators, so basically fake satellites. They're going to launch 10 of them. They'll spit out a little patch, like a Pez dispenser, on the side of that Starship, and we are right here and getting to see it firsthand, just feet away. It's so freaking. So Starlink V3 satellites, what is this? This is the whole new generation of Starlink satellites, which adds a whole lot more capability and capacity to the Starlink network, and this is made possible by this massive Starship rocket. It would not have been possible before that. So wow, V3, what is new in it, and what are they actually testing today? So first off, Starlink and Starship were developed to kind of work hand in hand. They were developed to go together from the very beginning. So much so that back in 2021, Elon Musk sent out an all-hands email to every SpaceX employee canceling Thanksgiving vacation, saying that if they didn't get the Starship program back on track to start launching 2 Starships with Starlinks on them per every 2 weeks by the end of 2022, SpaceX risked a serious risk of bankruptcy. Well, clearly SpaceX did not go bankrupt, and they did not meet their goals of launching Starship in 2022, but they pivoted. They managed to come up with a more cost-effective and evolved version of the original Starlink satellites and kept them going on the older Falcon 9 rockets while they kept working on Starship to get to the point where they're now soon going to be able to deploy satellites that meet the original massive vision for Starlink. So what's new in these V3 satellites, and how is this an improvement over what came before? First off, that requires us to look back at the kind of the evolution of Starlink satellites. Now, when Starlink first started launching, they were able to fit 60 of them into a Falcon 9 rocket, which is pretty impressive. But as the Starlink satellites evolved, as they added the laser interconnect links and did what they call the version 1.5 satellites, they couldn't fit 60 anymore, maybe just in the 50 range. As they were going along. Eventually they added the more capacity by the V2 mini satellite. This was how Starlink pivoted when they couldn't get the original V2 satellites that required Starship ready in time. The Starship wasn't going to be ready. They shrunk that down and did a scaled back version of the satellites we're going to be seeing soon. They did a scaled back version that would fit in the Falcon 9, but they were only able to launch 20 to 23 at a time, particularly once they started adding on the direct-to-cellular piggyback payload that allowed Starlink satellites to do basic cellular coverage in partnership in the USA with T-Mobile. That is just starting to go into beta test. So suddenly they went from launching 60 satellites at a time to just 20, 23, 24 of them at a time. It's really slowed down the pace of Starlink evolving, and well, these satellites weren't near the capacity of what they ultimately wanted to do. So what did they want to do? We're finding out now. They finally revealed some of the specs of the V3 satellite. This is the latest version of the Starlink satellite, designed to be much bigger and to take advantage of what Starship can launch. Now, the details of this, the upgrades from the V2 Mini to the V3 are pretty massive. First off, well, Starship will be able to carry up 54 satellites at a time versus that 20 to 23 on a Falcon 9. So basically more than doubling the number of satellites going up at once, which is, well, okay, doubling is good, but what about these bigger satellites? Do they have more capacity? And yeah, that's where the big upgrades are. These satellites have a lot more solar power, a lot more computing power, are physically much larger, and they weigh a lot more. So the total stack of those 50 satellites can weigh about 100 tons versus 17 tons on a Falcon 9. And that will come up with 60 terabytes per second of capacity going up per launch versus what it was capable of on a Falcon 9 launch. It's a 20x increase in the amount of capacity going up per launch. 20x is a huge jump in capacity going into orbit. And each individual satellite will have a 1 terabit per second of processing speed and bandwidth that it can beam up and down. The individual satellite beam links, the capacity will go up to 160 gigabits per second. For the satellite itself, that is a 10x increase over the V2 mini satellites. And for the uplink capacity, what the satellite can take up into it, it's going up to 24x the capacity of what the V2 mini satellites. So a 10x increase in downlink from the satellite and a 24x increase in uplink from the satellite, from the ground to the satellites. That is a huge improvement in what these satellites are capable of. For end users, that will mean they can serve more users without congestion, potentially offer higher speeds, higher downlink speeds, and particularly we're hoping to see, because this has been one of the Achilles heels for Starlink, we're hoping to see higher uplink speeds for end users over time as this next generation V3 constellation comes online. So that is pretty exciting, and well, we might start to see these satellites launching later in 2025. This is what's happening today, is the very first test. It is a test of 10 fake Starlink V3 satellites, because this is a suborbital flight. It's not designed to stay in orbit, so it's kind of pointless to launch real satellites, but they're going to test the satellite deployment mechanism while it is in orbit to see if they can successfully deploy these 10 fake satellites. If it works well, in the next few months, the next test flight, they very well might go orbital and launch the first real Starlink V3 satellites. And as this constellation comes online and as the Starship comes online over the course of 2025, they very well can start switching from the Falcon 9 and the V2 Mini to starting to really commercially deploy V3 by the end of 2025. So this is pretty exciting. And it's even more so exciting when you consider that Starship is designed to be fully reusable. So unlike the Falcon 9, where it's just the booster stage comes back and lands and is reused, the Starship, both the booster, which they're hoping to catch today when it comes back and lands on those little chopstick arms right on the pad, they're hoping to catch the booster for the second time and maybe soon start reusing the boosters. And the Starship, the full-on space orbital class rocket, is designed to come back and land and be caught as well. So they're not going to try and catch the Starship today. They're going to land it, soft land it in the Indian Ocean. And Elon Musk has said that if that soft landing goes well, maybe they'll actually try to catch the Starship as soon as Flight 8. But ultimately, probably take a while to work out all the bugs on landing something from orbit like that. Ultimately, once they get that worked out, every Starship launch is actually going to be cheaper than a Falcon 9 launch. So launching 20x the capacity per launch, much more capable satellites, even cheaper. It really bodes well for the future of Starlink. It is a pretty exciting time to see what SpaceX is up to. And well, we got to go get out there and get ready, because in just a few hours they're going to light this off and we will be witness to some pretty fiery, explosive, not in a bad way, history. And hopefully we'll even get to see that booster come back and be caught with the big sonic booms shaking our van right here in the front seat. So we're very excited. That's the latest with Starlink, and this is the beginning of a new era. So we'll be tracking all of this over at the Mobile Internet Resource Center. If you want to follow along as Starlink continues to evolve, we've been covering Starlink since before it was named Starlink, before since the very, very first FCC filings years and years ago. We've got a lot of coverage of the history of everything, and we're going to continue to cover the future. So check us out there and join us over at the Mobile Internet Resource Center. So that was absolutely amazing. We just saw this booster take off, throw the Starship up into space, and come back and land right on the launch pad. But unfortunately, SpaceX's Starship serial number 33 is now officially confirmed as lost. It did not make it into orbit. It had a rapid, unscheduled disassembly just before the engines were set to shut off, so that's called a RUD. And that means the testing of the Pez Dispenser, the new satellite deployment mechanism, did not happen. But, well, this will be something that will be covered with the next test that will rapidly iterate, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the next time when they actually do get to test this and move forward with the next generation of Starlink. So that is an update. It was amazing to watch. If you ever get a chance to come down to Texas and watch one of these launchers, wow. And, well, it's testing. It doesn't always work out. Hopefully they get it right next time. Till then.
These videos are brought to you by our premium members, our mobile internet aficionados. They make it possible for us to track this news and create these videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, or better yet, consider becoming a member yourself.